The party told you to reject the evidence of your eyes and ears. It was their final, most essential command. So you've been hearing that quote a lot lately. And all I can say is that George Orwell was spot on. By now, you've all heard what happened in Minneapolis. We have yet another victim, shooting victim of ICE. And the party is going to try to tell you that it was somehow Alex Pretti's fault or that he was an aggressor, that he pulled a weapon on ICE officers and the ICE officers were simply doing their job. But if you take the time to watch the many videos that have been posted all over the place, you're going to see a completely different story from what they're trying to say. And if after watching the evidence of your eyes and ears, you're still going to believe what the party is telling you, what the regime is telling you, I don't really know what more I can say. Neil, tell me what you think, what you're feeling right now.
I'm angry. It baffles me that this is where we live and we don't have an opposition party, right? It would be one thing if our political leaders would stand up for our communities, which we love and we celebrate in our communities. We raise our children in our communities. These are our communities, and these politicians sit up on their hill and they're like, obey. They're like, oh, don't interfere. Don't get in their way. As our children are getting picked up off the street, as people are disappearing in our communities. And, I wish I could say it was just the Republicans who are going along. I really feel like they're getting a free pass in all of this, which they shouldn't be, right? But it's like, this is what's expected of them. But Democrats, these are death squads. This is the brute squad. It doesn't take much to see what these people are. These are criminals. These are child predators, and they are sex offenders. And the response from Democrats is well, they just need more training. More training at what? Killing citizens?
Killing citizens.
Right? Like is this the training? Government, though, seems to have an inability to change direction. Okay. And we're seeing Democrats do that right now. It's literally like you have criminals coming into our communities, right? Like beating people up, murdering people, raping people, right? Like child predators picking children up off the street, right? And the Democrats say they just need more training.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. They need more money and training.
They need more money and they need more training. Like, it makes no fucking sense. Even the most reasonable person on the face of the earth says this is an agency no longer has an ability to function in its performing duties, and we need to get rid of it. You need to abolish ICE, right? Like, even a normal person goes that. I'm not saying we don't need something in its place, but the system was broken. The immigration system in this country was broken. Everybody knew it. The people knew it. The immigrants knew it. The politicians knew it. It just happened to be that nobody wanted to fix it because of the money that was rolling in as a result of it. Okay? Remember, you look at any problem, just look at who profits. And then you see, and then you could find out why it continues. Okay. This was a problem right from the very beginning. And I'm not saying we don't need some type of immigration enforcement out there, but ICE and DHS and CBP, no, absolutely not. They have gone way beyond their mandate. They have completely lost touch with their mission and what they're supposed to be doing. And not only that, they've gone out and they've hired criminals.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and not just like any type of criminals, right? Like, this is like Blazing Saddles. Go find me like the worst of the worst. I want your rapists. I want your murderers. I want these people are horrible, horrific people.
I know.
Okay. Who, you can't do anything. I'm immune, so I get to keep doing it. Go fuck yourself, right?
And so,
I'm sorry. Get rid. This agency needs to go. Any Democrat sitting there and saying, no, I disagree, or we need to reform it. I'm sorry, you are now in compliance. You're now complicit in all of this because
Yes.
it will just continue.
Yes.
Sorry,
So,
off my soapbox
no,
now.
no, I know. This is between Renee Good and now Alex Pretti. It's emotional. People have feelings about this.
You don't need to be in law enforcement to see that she was murdered. You don't need
Yes.
be law enforcement to see that Alex Pretti was murdered. You don't need to be in law enforcement. You just need to see the video. And to be honest with you, I'm not a fan of watching that video. I saw it. I have not been able to watch it again because it is
It's
very,
difficult.
very traumatic, right? The trauma that ICE is instilling in Americans, right? The fear, the terrorism. Uh, Listen, I lived through 9/11. I was fucking there. I hate when people, like, everybody wants to celebrate 9/11, okay? And I have really restrained myself from talking about it, right? All these people sit there who weren't there, didn't see anything, have no idea what the fuck they're talking about, just watched it on TV, right?
Yeah.
They think they know. They're like, "Oh, well, I know." No, you weren't there. I was there. I was downtown working at that point in time. I know what fucking trauma is. That was traumatic what they did to Alex Pretti. That was traumatic what they did to Renee Good.
Renee.
Okay? And that trauma, right, will be around for a long time, okay? And the fact that Americans are being terrorized by its own government, and the response from Democrats is we're going to triple their budget,
I
okay?
know, right?
We're gonna triple their budget. But we got some concessions. What was the concessions? Did anybody look at those concessions? One of the concessions was to put Trump's appointed inspector general in charge of reporting to Congress. Fuck off. I'm sorry. There are 2 Democrats in New York who voted for that motherfucking bill. Okay. And one of them was Tom Suozzi, who can literally suck all the dicks that he can find. All right. Because that was bullshit. All right. And Representative Gillen. Okay.
Gillen, yep.
Both Long Island Democrats. Fuck all the way off.
They're not
Seriously.
Democrats. They're fucking dinos. Always have been.
Suozzi wanted to run for Schumer's seat, right? Like, that was what he had been planning on. He had been planning on running for Schumer's seat. Okay, great. We need somebody else from New York who has no fucking spine and is a goddamn coward, right? I'm sorry. These people are breaking the law. Now you have no rights. You have no amendment rights, right? No constitutional rights. Your constitutional rights are completely gone. Don't think you have any, because you don't. Right? Anybody who goes, I have a First Amendment right, I have a Second Amendment right, I have no, they're all gone, because
They're
what
all
we're seeing
taking them apart.
what we're seeing out in Minnesota is you only have the rights that they give you, which is none. And they could take them away at a moment's notice and deprive you of your life, right? And make up whatever fucking excuses that they want. They're putting together a database now of all Americans who they deem to be terrorists, or they deem to be threat to their administration. How long before that police squad that they have out there, right? That brute squad, right? Turns their sights on everybody else. How long? Right
Yeah.
now, it's just little protesters. How long before they're coming to your door, knocking down your door and saying, you have no rights, I'm taking you to a camp and we're going to rendition your ass.
Yeah. Re-education. So that's our rant on this. I want to talk a little bit about the aftermath of what's gone on. I had a hard time sleeping. I know about you. And immediately you go into social media and you have to have these battles. There was a couple of different angles of video, one in particular from the woman in the pink jacket. That's the one that's out there. And there's one very significant piece of information. First of all, we see Alex. He's got a phone in his hand. He never has a gun in his hand at any time. His other hand is raised. He's then sprayed in the face. The woman was knocked to the ground. He actually wanted to help her, even asked how she was. That turned out to be his last words. So he's sprayed in the face with chemicals, tackled by like 5 or 6 of these Border Patrol, ICE agents, whatever they are. They have forced him face down to his knees on the ground, and you see a man in a kind of big older guy in a silver gray jacket, longish jacket, step into the pile, reach in, and he comes barehanded, comes out with a gun, and turns to step away from the pile, and that's when the shooting begins. People took screenshots of that man with the gun and started circulating it around social media, saying that that was Alex Pretti with his gun. No, that was the agent that took his gun. He's got a freaking mask on his face. You could see it. This is what we're talking about, believing or disbelieving what you're, or listening to what your eyes and ears are seeing, and not to believe what the party is telling you. It's so important. And it's interesting. I'm going to quote, just paraphrase what Heather Cox Richardson said yesterday. And it's important because she's right. She said, "This is the moment where you can no longer say, oh, I didn't know. I didn't know that this was going to happen." You can't say it anymore. This is that moment when things are going to turn. This is absolute murder of an innocent man who did nothing more than try to help a woman who was knocked to the ground, forcefully knocked to the ground by one of these goons, ICE goons. So my question, Neil, see if we can figure this out. What is our next steps as an opposition, and not just an opposition party, but just people who are opposed to this? Shouldn't it just be party?
There is no opposition party. Like the Democrats showed you who they were with the last CR, right? The continuing resolution budget bill. And now they showed you who they are with this budget bill, right? The omnibus budget bill. They are showing you who they are. What they and their rhetoric is very, very clear. The beatings will continue, whether they are in power or whether the Republicans are in power. The beatings will continue. Okay? All right? That's what you're being told. Democrats, listen, that DHS bill would not have passed, all right, if those 7 Democrats didn't cross over. Okay? It would have failed. Okay? So, and all the other bills, there were like 4 omnibus budget bills passed overwhelmingly. You're talking almost 130, 140 Democrats just giving money to this administration, this lawless administration. Okay? They're showing you who they are. Listen, I hate to say it. I really hate to say it, right? Midterms, no midterms, it doesn't fucking matter now. The only thing that matters is us and protecting our communities. And if honestly enough, if the politicians aren't going to stand up for our local communities, then we have to do it ourselves. Okay?
Yeah, I agree.
And that's what that means. And that means organizing, right? Organizing groups, organizing people who are going to collect food, who are going to bring food to people who are hiding out. It may even mean hiding people in our homes, right? Just like Anne Frank was hiding in somebody's home back in Nazi Germany. That's what we're looking at. We're looking at an underground railroad now.
People are talking about this.
Right. You're looking at protecting your local community, and you cannot rely on anybody else, right, to help you, okay, or protect you. And let's be honest, you don't even know who your friends and enemies are anymore, because your neighbor could be one of the people waiting to turn you in. So,
Isn't that sick? That is a sick thought.
So, and I bring that up. Because in local news, there was a recent school board meeting, right, in Minneapolis, which got really, really heated. Okay. I don't know a lot of details about the situation, but one of the school board members works for ICE. Okay. And I could tell you right now,
terrible.
I could, and I could tell you right now, as a parent, I would not want an ICE agent on my school board. The fact that he may have access to sensitive information, the fact that he could demand access to sensitive information, the fact that he may know sensitive information about children in the school, right? I'm sorry. No, you're no longer trustworthy with information about children, right? And listen, this guy may be a decent guy, and he may have gotten that seat because of the fact that he ran. But I'm sorry, you're now tainted by all the shit that your brothers in arms are doing. We talk about one bad apple. Well, you got a lot of bad apples, and if you can't keep your own shit straight, I don't want you anywhere near my fucking kid. Okay?
Exactly. Yeah.
So that came up. And then in other local news, I want to talk about this too briefly because I think it's important to mention. All right. The Democratic caucus finally took over in the Orange County legislature. Now remember, we're in Orange County, New York. Okay, so it's been Republican controlled for the last 30 years, right? And we finally have a Democratic majority there. And the Rules Committee had met and they voted to oppose, right? Vehemently oppose, right? The ICE detention facility, the proposed ICE detention facility in Chester. All right. It was
Good for
sponsored
them.
by, right? It was sponsored by the now majority leader, Genesis Ramos. So great on her. Glad to see her leading on that. All right. And she talked about the overwhelming documentation of abuses by ICE. Okay. And there was one Republican legislature, right, that put up a fight. Okay. He wanted to remove, right, from the resolution, right, everything that gave it teeth, right, that ICE is providing inadequate conditions, the lack of medical care, the inhumane treatment of detainees,
The canceled medical care.
Right. He wanted all that stripped from the resolution. Okay. Right. And he was the only guy, right, on that committee to vote no to that resolution. It passed overwhelmingly, Republicans and Democrats. He was the only Republican that said that chose to vote no. Right there. Tom Fangione here in Orange County, right? What a piece of garbage. Okay. Because I guarantee you that guy, right? And he hasn't made a statement. And I would love to hear his explanation for why ICE should be allowed in our communities to shoot our neighbors. I would love to hear him talk about community safety and say why that's a good thing.
Well, he'll go into, we need to get rid of the criminal illegal aliens and we need a place to put them. Dude, this has never been about immigrants.
No,
this is about racism. And the proof. Tell him, and the proof came out yesterday, right? Tell him about the letter that Pam Bondi sent to Governor Walz, and this is what it's really about.
Right. So, in order, the blackmail is we will remove ICE if you give us the voter database information that we requested. Right. They have to turn over their voter database to the federal government, to Trump, so that he can remain in power, right? And the Republicans can remain in power, and they'll leave. They'll leave the citizens. Comply or die, right?
Yeah.
Comply or die. That's what that is. I'm sorry, if
Extortion.
your governing phrase is comply or die, you do not live in a free society. And again, Mr. Fangione, Honorable Fangione, who is not so honorable, right, clearly went out of his way to say, I don't agree with this, right? This is okay with me, because he lives in a privileged world, right? And so therefore, none of this will impact him, right? You know, he's one of those guys. He would be the guy that turns you in.
Incredible.
Right? So, you know, listen, the people who voted for him, if you want to vote for somebody who's going to turn your neighbors in, right, to the SS, there's your guy. There's your guy.
Wow. So that's where that's what is going on. That is going on. And, as long as you're bringing up the ICE facility, has there been more movement? I know that the signs came down. I drove past there during the week, and I see that the signs are gone for Pep Boys, but there's still a for rent sign up. So
but you saw all those rider trucks in there?
I did see rider trucks in there, yes.
There were like a lot of rider trucks in there, and I don't know. I will say this. I'm very happy because I saw this the other day. And I'm gonna put it up on. So if you drive by the warehouse, somebody had set up a memorial to Nicole Good at the proposed facility in Chester. So
Wow.
I wanted to share that. It was very nice of whoever did it. It's thank you. Thank you from all of us. I'm gonna stop by probably this week and I'll drop off flowers of my own.
Yeah. Yeah, I might
You
actually have
know,
to go past there. I go there on my way to Sugarloaf a lot.
and drop off maybe something for Alex.
Yep. Now we have to now we have to put a second one.
If you're telling me that your mission is immigrants, why are you even interacting with American citizens? Why are you knocking down their doors? Why are you kidnapping children? Like,
Why are you
I'm sorry,
disappearing indigenous?
it's all based in this white supremacy racism. And I'm sorry, I'm not going to sit here and be gaslit into believing the bullshit. I'm just not. The premise is Alex Pretti was murdered. You want to defend yourself? Great. I would actually expect that in our judicial system, right? Because that's what we're supposed to have is a judicial system that all the murderers, right? Because I think they're saying it was more than one agent shot, right? The murderers should then be put on trial. The government should then be able to put up a defense, and then a jury of his peers will make the determination whether they believe it's murder or whether they believe that it was self-defense at that point in time, right? That's the way our judicial system works. The judicial system does not work that the government just gets to decide guilt and innocence right there and then and do summary executions, right? That's not a part of the executive branch. And if somebody wants to come and tell me, right, that is in the Constitution, then show me. Then show me the law that allows for summary execution by the executive branch.
Yeah. This is this is bullshit.
It doesn't exist. It doesn't
No, it doesn't exist. They're stripping each and every amendment piece by piece. And now Trump's post that he put yesterday seems to allude to the fact that you can't legally carry your own pistol. They're not going to go for the Second Amendment. It's funny. This is the tyranny y'all talked about, right? Alex Jones coming out saying they're going to come. They're going to put police in the street. They're going to come for your guns. They're going to take away your rights.
It was never about that. Again, if in a feudal system, some people are allowed to have guns and some people aren't allowed to have guns. Germany did the same thing. Like, people don't realize. Everybody thinks that Germany was all about gun control. Like, we hear about gun control all the time, and everybody says, "Well, Nazi Germany." No, Germany coming out of World War I had strict gun laws in place, and that was imposed on them by the outside because of World War I. Right then, right after. I can't even remember now because I'm like completely crazed, right? But right after they decided that Jews were no longer citizens, okay, of Germany, right? Right after they decided to declassify them and say that they were all now undocumented, but they made them wear, the gold
the little stars,
right? The gold stars embroidered on their clothing to identify them. Okay, before that they were citizens, and then all of a sudden one day they weren't citizens anymore. Okay, and then the government expanded gun rights and said, if you are a German citizen, you are now allowed to have guns. So the people who weren't allowed to have guns were the Jews. Okay. And anybody else who was not a German citizen. So they expanded gun ownership. We're seeing the same thing, right? They're going to say, oh, well, if you are a Christian national, right,
you can have a gun.
You're allowed to own a gun. Okay, if you're part of ICE, you're allowed to own a gun. But if you're a Democrat, right? Because I've heard that if you're a Democrat, you're not allowed to own a gun.
Yeah. Yep.
Right.
That's where the direction they're going.
Now, why is it that you're not allowed to own a gun? It's very interesting, okay? Play it out in your head, exactly the mentality that these people fucking have, okay? The mentality is, Well, if you're against Trump and you're a Democrat, there must be something mentally wrong with you.
I was saying, I said, put that in a post. That's the whole Trump
Right.
derangement syndrome.
Right. Then that means that you shouldn't have the ability to own a gun then.
Because you're deranged. Yes, yes.
Thi-
Oh,
this-
yeah. I did that in a post.
Right. And this goes to the next step where I say that if you're a Democrat, right, and in particular, if you utilize Act Blue, right, because they're investigating Act Blue for terrorism, they're going to eventually say that Act Blue is a terrorist or is a financial supporter of terrorists, and if you utilized Act Blue, you're going to be considered a terrorist.
Now, this is also why they want voter rolls, why they're suing multiple states to get hold of the list of the voters. They want to see how you're registered. If you are not registered as a Republican, you are a potential threat to their power.
Unaffiliated. I changed mine to unaffiliated.
I don't even think that'll matter. I don't think that'll matter. Unless
I think
if
they're going to target Democrats first. I think they'll target Democrats first.
Well, they try, but I will say this: when we had the mass shooting by the alleged trans individual back in September, God, it seems like it was eons ago. They tried to suggest taking guns away from trans people, and there was pushback, even from the NRA. So I'd be, not to say that they'll push back on this, but
yeah, but the people
that's where they're going to go.
The people who own all those guns, those people who were the Second Amendment, or a lot of them are with ICE now.
Oh, I know.
And so that's why you're not hearing from them. That's why they don't, right? Because now they're the ones treading on everybody, right?
Yeah,
The
yeah.
don't tread on me guys are now the ones, basically saying, we're gonna do whatever the fuck we want, including rape your women, right? Steal your children, okay, and commit whatever other acts of violence that we can commit.
Theft. I mean, there's multiple reports.
Oh yeah,
of
no,
theft.
they're
taking
stealing from everybody. Yep.
devices, taking money. I mean, that goes way back to last spring when a home was broken into by ICE agents. They dragged that mother and her two kids out of bed and took them out of the house they just moved into. They just moved there like 2 weeks before from like Maryland, and they ransacked the house and walked out with the cash that they had to live on. That's exactly, by the way, what the SS did. They dragged people from their homes and then ransacked the homes.
What I'm having a hard time understanding is local law enforcement continues to use the excuse we're not allowed to interfere with a federal operation. Understood. We don't want our local police interfering with federal operations. If there is a federal operation, that means there has to be documentation, right? They want to break into a house, has to be a judicial warrant. They are picking somebody up off the street, even with an administrative warrant, right? They have to have the warrant, right? Why aren't the local police stopping the ICE agents and saying, let me see your documentation? Let me ensure that you are here for legitimate reasons, because that's not happening, right? They don't even have administrative warrants. They're writing the administrative warrant after they pick you up.
Yeah,
They're crashing into cars of U.S. citizens just because they don't like them. It boggles my mind that this is what's happening, and the local police aren't stepping up.
And people are sitting by, watching it, or even just shutting the TV off, switching the channel, and not acknowledging it. Again, this is the moment that you cannot say I didn't know, because now things are it's going to get much worse before it gets better.
If you think these violations of other people's rights, right, is okay because they aren't violating your rights, here's what I'm going to tell you. If they can violate somebody else's rights, they can violate yours. And you don't have those rights anymore. If you don't stand up for other people, then you are just as complicit, at which point in time you don't have any rights. Your rights are gone too. Violating the 4th, 5th, 7th, 9th, and 14th Amendments. I mean, I don't know what it is, with the exception of the 14th, these fucking guys don't seem to like odd amendments, right?
The
If
first,
there's
you
an odd
forgot the
amendment,
first.
they're gonna find a way to break it. They're gonna say, fuck that amendment. We don't like that amendment. Like it's like unbelievable.
But that is part of the plan to break apart the Constitution, and by systematically tearing down and normalizing violating each and every amendment until they can turn around and say, well, we can do whatever we want. And the feckless fucking Supreme Court sits there and does absolutely nothing. They either brush it under the table or they lift the stays to allow the practice to continue until, maybe it comes up for court a year, 5 years down the road. They kick it back to the court and let it sit and just fester. And meanwhile, things are getting worse and worse, and now Americans are dying. People in general are dying. There's 30 plus deaths in custody under weird circumstances, including a lynching. A man found lynched with his hands and feet bound. And they tried to say that was a suicide. Whole lot of weird suicides with these people, I got to tell you.
Everything is propaganda. Everything is intent on selling you something. And in order to provide some type of comfort as to what that your government is doing these things but not doing them to you. And therefore it's supposed to instill fear, but at the same token make you thankful that you're not that person. That's what it's intended to do. And again, right, silence is no longer, again, the opposite of love is not hate. The opposite of love is indifference, right? It's the end of humanity, right? If you are indifferent to these atrocities that are occurring in your name, because these are Americans, you're an American, this is your government, right? Government for the people, by the people. Your government has been taken away from you by Democrats and Republicans. Yeah. They've taken it away. They've abandoned you. I equate this to, honestly, I think I said it right from the beginning. This is a corporate takeover of America. Like this is what you would call a hostile corporate takeover. It has every facet of a hostile corporate takeover. You have the rich billionaires fighting over resources. Everybody wants the bet steal. Socialize the profits or privatize.
Socialize the losses.
No, socialize the. I can't remember now. So it's socialism for the rich and rugged individualism for the poor. That's it. Got it.
Yeah.
Now.
There you go. So
socialism for the rich. Everybody else can go screw themselves.
Go fuck themselves. Yeah. That's and we've been saying all along that this is this is not a left or right issue. This is a top down issue. The very, very, very top that are pocketing our tax dollars and using them to finance a paramilitary force to keep us quiet, to keep us silent, to keep us from speaking out and exercising our First Amendment rights. Now possibly going after our Second Amendment rights, while breaking into our homes, violating our homes and vehicles while violating our Fourth Amendment rights. Right. Can we go? Let's go through. Let's go through. What have they done next with Fifth Amendment?
Right. Depriving us of life without due process. Yes.
Due process. Fifth Amendment.
Ninth Amendment says if we haven't provided you a right, you have certain inalienable rights, which now they've taken away from us. Right.
You skipped over cruel and unusual punishment in the Eighth. Look at what's happening. How many people have been brutalized, have died in custody. We still, I'm gonna bring it up again. Where are those 1,000, 1,200 detainees from Alligator Auschwitz? Disappeared without a trace. We don't know where the fuck they are. Were they tossed to the alligators? We don't know. We may never know. And so,
they may be working for ICE. They may have enlisted some of them to work for ICE.
Really? Why would they do that?
Listen, it's either be deported or go to work for the people that are brutalized, will go out and brutalize Americans. Listen, the deals that
it's interesting.
You seem to forget. This is a criminal organization. This isn't normal government. This is a criminal organization. We know for a fact, because they offered it to somebody, right, that they're offering catch and release. Hey, you go and be an informant, and you go and get names for us. You go tattle on your friends. You go do this, right? We'll let you go and we'll protect your family. Okay. They're offering those
You
kind
don't
of
leave them a
deals. We know
choice.
that you don't leave them a choice,
Don't leave them a
you know?
choice. Wow. Never thought about that. That is really interesting, and you probably hit the nail on the head. Hit the nail on
This
the
is
head.
you, the issue is you don't think like a criminal. You don't think like a criminal. You don't think like these guys think. These guys have spent their entire lives living in criminal organizations, right? Where everything was about getting the upper hand and having an advantage, right? That's all
By any
they've ever
means.
done, right? Any means necessary. And they use the levers of government to get that, you know? I get the economic boycotts, right? I understand the premise behind the economic boycotts. But here's what most people don't understand. The wealthy people aren't sitting there making their money off of owning stock. Like these billionaires, right? Yeah, they own a lot of stock and they have a lot of hedge funds and all that kind of stuff. But all their risk is thrown out to you as a shareholder. Your pension funds, your mutual funds, all that kind of stuff. That's where all the risk is. These guys get all their money, off of management fees, off of their guaranteed money, their incentive bonuses, right?
Government
Which get
contracts paid for with our
which they get
tax dollars.
right. I mean, these people make so much money in other ways that if the stock goes down, they lose nothing. They lose
Yeah,
nothing, you know?
absolutely. Yeah,
I mean,
100%.
we talked about Musk when Tesla went down. Like, Tesla stock started going down, okay? But he became a trillionaire
Yeah, he's on it. Well, he's on his way. He's like, he's like his income has doubled because why? Because Trump gave him multiple contracts, more contracts, and that increases the value. And the board, the shareholders said, you know what? We're going to keep you on, and we're going to give you more money, and yeah, you'll be a trillionaire pretty soon.
because that's again, everything is
That's
about
the game.
extracting wealth. The game is to extract wealth. These companies, whatever money, whatever cash comes in goes in their pockets, and you get left with the scraps with shareholder value. It's not like you're getting the, buco dividends or anything like that. The money goes to all the executives. You get a couple of pennies in dividends, right? And maybe the stock goes up, and maybe you could sell the stock 20 years from now at a profit. But if you can't, these guys who run these companies don't give a shit. They've already made their money like a million times over.
Yeah.
You know, go. Everybody should go out and read Michael Lewis's book. I think it was the Lightning Boys. Right.
That one I never
Um,
heard of.
he used to be a Solomon trader. He talked about it. All the risk is with the shareholders, They've set these things up as big giant Ponzi schemes for themselves, right? And with their executive payouts and all that kind of stuff, they make all their money, in other places.
Yeah, and they'll extract it from, speaking of the ICE facility locally, and we know that that building is owned by Carl Icahn. Carl
Yep.
Icahn is famous for, took over, I believe it was TWA, not Pan Am, it was TWA, right? And he, one of the things he
A
did
lot
was
of companies.
strip, yeah, well, yeah, but one of the things he did to TWA was he stripped down their retirement. A lot of those people, when he basically
Yeah.
bankrupted TWA, a lot of those people who had retirements that gave their lives to TWA had nothing, came out of there with nothing. That's what these people do. That's what these people are running the country, and they are doing the same thing to us. And make no mistake, they're coming for your Social Security too.
And now getting back to exactly that, right? We learned recently that it was reported that and I think I mentioned this on some previous episodes, that the local county jail, the Orange County Jail, is being used as an ICE facility,
Yeah,
and
yeah, I saw that.
that has now recently came up, and I believe they're holding, I want to say, what,
175.
175 people, right? And Orange County residents support that. Like, their tax dollars supplement that.
Yeah, the people who say, we shouldn't be paying for illegal aliens. You're paying for them now. You're paying for this army. You're paying billions of dollars more to
Right.
than, and those undocumented immigrants you didn't pay for. They came here and they worked and they got, money. They paid into our tax system. They paid into our Social Security. They paid into Medicare, Medicaid. I mean, we collected billions of dollars a year from their work. We made money. It's just so upside down.
Right.
If
So
people, if people knew a fucking thing about how the system really works, you
right.
would be outraged about what's going on and how your money is being spent right this minute versus what you had a year before this happened, before this shitbird took over.
Think about this. The Orange County Jail, right? It cost for those 175 ICE detainees to run the jail, it costs $77.5 million. Okay. ICE pays 8% of that. So they pay $5.5 million of that. Right. So that means Orange County residents are picking up the tab, right, for most of those detainees.
Did you hear that? Did you hear that, MAGA? I know you watch this. I know you leave your little bots leave little nasty comments in our feed, man. Did you hear that? You
Right.
are paying for 175 undocumented, allegedly people sitting in a jail for God how long have they been there? Who knows? To the tune of if it's 77 billion, to the tune of what? About $70 million per year of your tax dollars. I mean, wake up. I don't know how else we can point this out to you. I know everybody else who supports us and on the left side and in the center knows what we're talking about, but those of you on the right that just have to maintain the criminal illegals. Okay, undocumented is not criminal, but it's just
But it's
you,
not about that.
it.
Again, it's not about money, right? Like it's all an excuse, right, to make it seem like to mask their racism. That's all it is.
There you go.
That's all it is. It's an excuse to mask the racism. It's so that people can justify saying I'm not a racist, right? But at the end of the day, that's what you are. Fucking own it. That's what you are. That's what you believe. Just fucking own it. At this point, it's not like you pretending is coming at me like oh my god, you're the exception to the rule. I'm sorry. Listen, I'm an accountant. The economics don't fit your message,
That's it.
right? Because in tripling ICE's budget, right, that could have been healthcare for our entire nation.
Yep. But that was more important. And the funny
That
part,
was more important.
the most ironic part is these people got $75 billion back in the summer and they still haven't touched yet. They have the funding. They
Yeah.
have the funding. Giving them more is just to be able to keep them going for the next decade at least and into the future beyond.
And that's why I say, right, there's no real, right, everything the Democrats say don't match their actions, okay? It just doesn't match. What they say and what they do are completely opposite of each other. And that's why, we have to start fighting for what we want. We have to start understanding how our money is being spent, where it's being spent on, and where it's being allocated to, and say enough's enough. Okay. Right. Because it's coming out of our pocket and it keeps coming out of our pocket. And
Mhm.
at this rate, everything we earn is going to be going to them as they're stealing, right? Like it's like they're walking out the back door with bags of fucking cash of our money, right? Like I keep going back. It's like the old like cartoons, right? You have the like Smedley. Whoa! I got my money. I got my money. I'm gonna run. I got my money. I got my money. Right? Like I mean,
Unbelievable.
I'm sorry. Like people really just need to fucking wake up now and just be
Yeah.
done with this shit. And enough's enough. Hakeem Jeffries, Chuck Schumer, like enough's enough. Enough's enough, right?
Primaries.
ICE cannot be reformed. There is no such thing as reform for an agency that, I mean, this is like
is so corrupted now. It's
I
corrupted
hate
beyond
to
repair.
equate it. I hate to equate it to this, but it's like an animal. If an animal, once an animal gets a taste of blood, right? It's really, really hard to turn around and say, I'm going to give this animal another chance. Next thing you know, the dog is gnawing on your arm, right? Or
Yeah,
whatever,
yeah.
right? Like, because they want blood, and it's really hard to go back. At this
I'm
point in
gonna
time, they've gotten their blood. These guys are becoming more and more emboldened to abuse. There's no
Oh, yeah.
reining in this organization. There's no more training, because the only thing you're going to train them to do is be more violent.
Yeah.
You're just going to
And,
find a way for them to mask it more.
yeah, and you know what? You, sent me something yesterday that's just proof of that, because we keep talking about the importance of primaries and getting, candidates in there, working class candidates who are gonna fight for us and not for the fucking billionaires.
Oh, yeah.
And you sent me an announcement by Afton Bain. She ran in Tennessee.
So disappointing.
Yeah, we were hoping she would run again. Yeah, she performed unbelievably well in a special election in Tennessee back a couple of months ago. I guess she was going to run again, but unfortunately, she has been receiving multiple death threats, rape threats, threats of violence against her. So she chose to
And her
stay within her
family.
state and her family. And she chose to not continue to run, and she's going to stay within her state legislature. We're losing a really good candidate, a really good progressive candidate that would have made a difference, would have fought for change. And because these people on the right are sending threats to these candidates, that's part of it.
It's these guys it's the same people who were in ICE. It's the same people, right? These people just go out there and this is, first of all, it's owning the libs, right?
Mhm.
That's one of their phrase. The only good Democrat is a dead Democrat, right? These are the phrases that they use. They don't view Democrats as the opposition party. The Republican rhetoric for many, many years has been to view the Democrats as the enemy.
Yes.
Well, the enemy has to be destroyed. The opposition party has to be worked with, right? This is where they are, okay? And this is why they do and say what they do. And this is why local elections have become so bitter and bruising. This is why, state elections have become so bitter and bruising, is because instead of looking at each candidate and understanding where they are, what they want to do they represent you, right? We've gotten rid of all that. And it's, will you go in and destroy my enemy? My enemy being the person of the opposite party, even if that enemy is my neighbor.
So, folks, this has been a long discussion
Yes.
about how ICE has gone out of control, needs to be not reformed, it just needs to be abolished altogether, and how this is impacting, what it's costing you, right? What it's costing us all in our taxes, and how our taxes could be better spent helping us as citizens, and how it's also impacting our chances for good progressive candidates. We have a battle ahead of us. And if we really, really want to make a difference, folks, we all have to get together. We have to organize. You got to organize within your community. We'll talk more about that time to time. If we hear about stuff coming up, we will let you know. And in the meantime, as always, please like, share, and subscribe. Leave us a comment. Let us know what you think, how you're feeling. We want to share that with you. We're still doing our live streams on Tuesdays. This time I scheduled for 8, but if you want to keep it for 7, let us know.
I'm not going to make it for 7 this week, so it'd have to be 8.
We're going to keep it at 8. 8 seems to work. It seems to work. We're done with dinner. We can relax. We can have some coffee.
Right.
We'll bring coffee. We're going to bring coffee to the talk. And, we'll talk about it, how we're feeling it in this moment and ways that we can, excuse me, ways that we can organize, form a resistance within our communities. All right. So be safe. We love you. Enjoy Snowpocalypse. We'll talk about that in the next session. Take care, guys.
Peace out.